Hi, how are you? My name is Stan Barnes and I'm an inspector with the Farmington Hills Fire Department. Here today to talk to you a little bit about the Remembering When program. What is it? It's a National Fire Protection Association program that deals with fall and fire prevention. This program is targeting our seniors to make sure that they are safe from fall and fires. We've noticed that after the age of 65, individuals have a tendency to have more of those, as we would expect. So what we're going to do is do a program right here at the Caustic Center, and we're inviting you and your family to please come out and see what the program is about and see how we can help you and your families stay safe from fire and fall. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Sarah Hickey, and I am a nurse, and I'm the injury prevention coordinator for the trauma department at Beaumont Farmington Hills. So as Stan mentioned, we're here today to talk to you about fire and fall prevention. And the reason why this is so important is because we know that injuries due to both falls and fires are a very serious threat to the safety and independence of older adults. I do a lot of fall prevention out in the community, and that's because falls are actually the leading cause of accidental injury-related death for adults over the age of 65. We also know that falls are the most common cause of injuries like hip fractures and traumatic brain injuries. And also falls account for the majority of trauma admissions. So we're really working hard to deliver a lot of fall prevention messages out in the community. Stan's going to talk to you a lot about fire prevention. So we know that injuries due to fires are also very, very serious. And actually, by the time you reach the age of 65, your chances of either being seriously injured or killed in a fire is about twice that of the general population. And then once you get to the age of 75, you're 3 times more likely to either have a very serious injury or die from being in a fire compared to the rest of the population. So just a little bit of background about this Remembering When program. In response to those two issues, the National Fire Protection Association developed the Remembering When program. And what the goal is to help older adults living out in the community recognize what fire and fall hazards exist in their daily lives. Because sometimes we get real used to the way we're used to doing things, and sometimes we maybe overlook some things that are potential hazards. So we want to help you identify what those potential hazards are, and then we're going to offer simple, practical solutions on how we can reduce falls and fire so that we can all stay safely living at home. So we're going to give you 8 fire prevention tips, and then we're going to give you 8 fall prevention tips. And Stan and I we're a team, so we usually sort of work in tandem. So we'll do a couple fall, and then we'll do a couple fire prevention messages. So staying physically active, probably one of the best things that we can do to prevent falls. By getting regular exercise, we're improving lower body strength and our balance, and it's actually been proven to be very, very effective in reducing falls. So the good news is that exercising, it doesn't necessarily have to be intense, and you really don't need a lot of fancy equipment to exercise, right? Getting exercise really can range from doing simple stretching and strengthening exercises at home, like while watching television. You could do simple chair exercises, all the way to getting involved in a community exercise class. So what does everybody like to do? Because I know a lot of people probably come here and take advantage of all the cool activities here. What are some things you guys enjoy doing?
I don't know about the enjoy part, but most of my energy goes towards cutting the grass,
Okay.
pulling the leaves. In the winter, it's it's not so consistent except snow, but that's usually, not so, almost a couple times.
Yep.
a week.
So we can build activity or getting exercise into things that we normally do during the day.
I run the stairs
Running the stairs.
3 or 4 different times, 3 flights at a time.
Great.
Never stop. Just running the stairs and getting the heart rate going.
Good.
Walking the dog.
Walking the dog. Walking is a great way to exercise, right? So we're getting a good cardiovascular workout too. And walking is one of those things where you can kind of set your own pace. Does anybody do anything in the pool, water aerobics or? So being in the pool is also a great way to exercise too, because you're taking a lot of stress off your joints and your muscles. And so that being in the pool and doing exercise is also a great way to get activity. So you can see there's lots and lots of different options when it comes to staying active. Even very, very small amounts of activity can make a huge difference. I think the key to success is really trying to find what activity it is you enjoy doing and then stick with that activity. Just a few things on safety, because you mentioned walking your dog. So, if you're going to be outside, it's important to, consider that we might not always be able to anticipate weather changes. So sometimes it might start off chilly, but then as you are walking, you could warm up quickly. So dress in layers if you're going to be outside. That way you can take off a jacket and not overheat. Don't get dehydrated while you're exercising. It's normal as we get older to not feel thirsty, even when we might need fluids. So we want to remember to keep drinking while we're exercising, even though, or you want to keep drinking unless you've been advised by your doctor to restrict your fluids. Anytime you're exercising and you develop chest pain or shortness of breath or pain in your arm, that would be a good reason to stop and to call 911. So we want to stay active, but we want to keep safety in mind while we're doing it. What do you think the goal is for daily exercise? How much do you think we should be getting every day? Good, half hour. That's what the National Institute of Health recommends. So about 30 minutes of moderate activity at least 5 days a week.
Non-stop, half hour.
Well, some people can't always do a half an hour at a time. So it is okay to break it down into shorter periods of time if you need to. So moderate activity, we consider that intense enough that you can still say the lyrics to your favorite song, but you can't necessarily sing them. So when you're thinking about how hard you're working while you're doing exercise, that's kind of what you want to strive for. So here's a reminder, something we probably all know, but sometimes we all just need to slow down, right? We need to take our time and slow down. Being rushed or distracted, that can increase our chances of falling. So, again, just reminding yourself to slow down and really pay attention to your surroundings. Possible fall hazards could be books or shoes, even our pets could be tripping hazards, right? Anybody have a cat or a dog at home so pets can be a common trip hazard. So just slow down and take your time and really be aware of everything in your surroundings. What about when we're getting up in the morning? What would be one of the benefits of taking our time when we get out of bed in the morning?
Doing stretches before you get out of bed.
Okay. Yeah. Giving yourself a second to, what else would be a benefit?
I think it was slowly.
Sitting up, so why do we do that?
To get the blood flowing back to your head again.
Yes.
Depends on your medications too.
Right. So does anybody notice that when they change positions very quickly, they sort of get a little bit lightheaded or dizzy? So position changes can cause that. Medications can also make that a little bit worse. That's called orthostatic hypotension. So you get a drop in your blood pressure actually when you change positions. So that's why it's always a good idea to sit up slowly when you're waking up in the morning, and then sit on the edge of your bed for a minute or two. And you're right, do a few stretches, a few ankle pumps. Get yourself used to being upright before you stand up and start to walk. Same thing when getting out of a chair. Oftentimes people fall because they stood up too quick to answer the phone or to answer the door. So just reminding yourself to, slow down and take your time when you're getting up as well. So not being able to see well can increase our chances of falling. So the lighting both inside and outside of our homes is really an important safety consideration. In general, we want the light to be bright enough so that we can avoid tripping over things that aren't easily seen.
I think also those throw little rugs we have all the house should disappear.
Yes, good. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's also safest to have uniform lighting in each room. So that means that in corners of the room that might be a little bit darker, that you put a lamp or a light source, and then you hang curtains or shades on your windows to help reduce some glare from the sun. So that's what making the light uniform means. Everybody think about the path from your bedroom to your bathroom. Do you have a lamp or a light that is easily reachable from your bed? Do you have night lights going from the hallway and in the bathroom so that you can see if you get up in the middle of the night? Everyone has night lights? Good. It's also a good idea to keep maybe flashlights or battery-operated lanterns, something like that, in a easily accessible location so that you can get to them in case the power goes out.
I just got, when you mentioned the night lights, I had a bad fall, ripped my rotator cuff, needed surgery. So after that, and that was in the bedroom, I've got the motion detector night lights so that, when you get up, they come on. Then in the back, I have them in several places
Yes.
now. The only problem is that I have a couple older cats that like to roam at night,
So they set the motion detectors off?
the lights go off.
Yeah.
And actually I'm having a hard time finding the motion detector, night lights, that you want to be off, when you want to sleep or whatever. And then when you get a little bit close, they come on.
Yeah.
You'd think it would be a more common, item to buy.
Right. Yeah, a lot of these ones, I think this was just from the dollar store. So a lot of these have a sensor, so they just automatically come on when it gets dark.
Right,
And
but
then
it's not-
during the day they turn,
it's not
yeah.
motion, because you don't want it, I don't want it on, in the bedroom, so, and they don't, they don't seem to keep that motion, function as long as it works as just a night light.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I keep having to sometimes move them around depending on, because some of them too, you have to get awful close, so it's not really any good. So if you get up, and
Yeah.
start walking, you don't want to have to walk halfway across the room before
Right, yep.
it comes on. So, but it certainly has made a difference. It's like, I can think of, is in the grocery store now, in the frozen food departments, how they're not lit until you walk by as a customer, they, come on. So that's what, now between my bedroom and bathroom,
Yeah.
that I have.
Well, another normal thing that happens to us as we get older is it really does become harder for us to see in dim light. I think they say by the time you reach 60 years old, your eye actually needs about 3 times more light than it did when it was 20, when you were 20. So having lights or having a night light, especially in the middle of the night, is really important because
You just want to just turn on the big, bright lights,
just a little something so you can,
You want that,
yeah.
that wakes you up, and then, it's hard to get back to sleep.
right.
So the little ones have helped.
In addition to having good lighting, it's also important to have regular eye exams. So making an appointment to see your eye doctor at least once a year to have a vision screening, and then always making sure to keep your eye prescription current. So just having good vision can help to prevent many falls. You want to give some fire prevention messages?
How's everybody feeling? You guys feeling pretty good? Good. I'm going to pass this off because we'll have some fire trivia too. As was mentioned at the outset, my name is Stan Barnes. I'm an inspector with the Farmington Hills Fire Department. Also, this Remembering When program is put on by, as was mentioned, the National Fire Protection Association. I happen to be the state rep for education for the NFPA. So Remembering When is something that they're passionate about and something that our city is passionate about as well. Also, in conjunction with Sarah, we have a third partner. So as you can see, it's made up of 3 entities. The National Fire Protection Association wanted not just the fire departments to oversee it, they wanted us to partner up with other individuals so that you were getting a well-rounded message and so that the messages that you were getting were coming from professionals in those areas. So from Beaumont Health, as Sarah is, from the fire department as I am, the Farmington Hills Special Services is our third partner. Now, she's not here with you today. She was in and out. You probably saw her, and you know her. Her name is Teresa Jurgovich. Now, she's part of Special Services. So in conjunction with all the tips that you're getting today, we have what's called the home visits that happen. It's all part of the program. So some of the sign-in sheets that are going around is not just a sign-in sheet for here, but if you need any help at home outside of this, we provide that too. So we're going to get into some of the messages. So as you know, it's made up of 16 messages, 8 fall prevention messages, and 8 fire prevention messages. Some of the fire prevention messages, Sarah's doing a great job of covering all the fall. I'm going to cover the fire prevention. For example, I'll go through them now, and then we'll go through them in detail. If you smoke outside, that's the first message. Place space heaters at least 3 feet from flammables, second message is. Third message is frying food, stay in the kitchen, and we'll talk about that. Clothes on fire, still stop, drop, and roll. Have smoke alarms installed, and we'll talk about that. And then know the emergency numbers. We know in our area it's 911. And then plan, practice your escape from fire and smoke. So that's something we want you to plan and practice at our ages. And then finally, plan your escape around your abilities, which is really important because as we know, as we get older, you know, we're not able to do the things that we were able to do when we were younger. So now, planning around our abilities. But that first one, as tip number 1 says, if you plan to smoke and if you have to smoke, smoke outside. The reason being is because just like that little cigarette that dropped out of that ashtray and burned the table, let's say another scenario where it dropped out of the ashtray and landed on the carpet floor, or dropped out and landed in between cushions of couches. What will we get out of that?
Big headache.
Yeah, but fire, yep, and a big headache. Right, exactly. So we say if you have to smoke, smoke outside. But then for those who do smoke outside or things like that, we recommend, instead of the shallow ashtrays, we recommend having a deeper ashtray, something like a ashtray so where if the cigarette drops, it'll drop inside of the ashtray instead of outside. So that's a good point to remember. But yeah, smoking outside is really what we want. Of course, as was said, we want them to quit altogether, but we can't mandate that. So if they have to smoke, smoke outside. We're seeing less and less of that. People are starting to be more responsible. But I just want to let you know a statistic from the state, our state that we live in, the state of Michigan, the #1 cause of fires at this time is smoking. So we want to help them to appreciate. And the 2 popular places for fires to happen are living rooms and bedrooms. Behind that is kitchens, and we'll talk about that later. So keep that in mind. So for those, and I know it may not apply to any of you, we're asking, as you remember these tips, to pass those tips on to those individuals that you know. Our second point, dealing with space heaters. How many of you remember when years ago, everybody used to have space heaters years ago? Remember that? Sure. Right, exactly. What was some concern with space heaters? What is the concern? Who wants to tell us?
Too close to fire.
Okay, we'll start with you first.
Too close to things that could catch on fire.
Too close, yes, exactly.
And the floor is not the best place.
And the floor isn't the best place always, yes?
Right. We used to have to keep a metal sheet like under it.
Uh-huh.
And you had to keep it at least 3 or 4 feet from the wall.
Exactly. Both points are valid points. So what we're saying is that space heaters, for those who have to use them, as it says up here, at least, just like she said, at least 3 feet away from flammable, space heaters should be. The other thing, as was said too, space heaters years ago, they didn't have the features that some of them have now. Some of the space heaters now, they have what's called tipping features. So if they tip over, they automatically shut off some of those built-in features. And those are good features, but we just want to keep those reminders that anything, you know, like I tell you when I was growing up, yeah, we used to get really close to that space heater because we want to get that blanket and put it around the space heater and get that heat. But all of those,
That's why you want it.
exactly. But all of those habits, we just have to remember that some of those habits can lead to fire. So we want to be careful about that. I want to ask you this bonus question. Talking about frying food, it says this. It says, you're frying on the stovetop, and the doorbell rings. What should you do?
Close your stove, close it.
Turn off the stove, remove it off the heat. Yes, exactly. Put a lid on it. All of those were the right answers. Let me tell you why that's so important, because sometimes, and I'm going to take you over to my mock kitchen. Some of you may not be able to see it over here, but this is my mock kitchen over here. So over here, and I know you can catch this, over here we have a stove set up. Now, what happens is that sometimes what we do is that when we get a phone call or doorbell rings, sometimes we forget that we're cooking in there, right? And so the doorbell rings and we say, oh, wow, you know, I'm cooking here. Let me go answer the doorbell. So we go answer the doorbell, and then we get involved in the conversation. It's our best friend that we haven't seen, the neighbor down the street, and they say, hey, did you know what happened the other night down the street? Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Meanwhile, what's going on back there? Yeah, especially with frying foods. So what we are recommending is that you do what you said. You turn it off, you remove it, you cover it. Here's the other thing that you're recommending. I'm grabbing this out of my kitchen. So now I'm gonna go open the door. So what did I just do? I'm at the door now. Now I'm talking to a friend. I got this in the door. A reminder. So as we said, remembering when is so important, because now I've taken this from the kitchen. So I got this in my hand. Who walks around with a spatula? So, first of all, what is the neighbor going to do when they see you with this?
Number one cook working.
Right, so what is the neighbor going to do when they see you with this? Yeah, the neighbor's going to say, hey, what's going on? You must be cooking. What's going on? You got that in your hand. So that's one reminder. The other thing, just like she said, is that when we have this in our hand, it reminds us, oh, wow, I got something from the kitchen. You know what? I would love to keep this conversation going, but I'm frying food right now. The reason why we talk about frying food as opposed to boiling water, things like that, frying food, once the grease heats up to a certain temperature, it does what's called auto-ignite. Because of the heat, it heats up to a certain temperature, and then now you have a grease fire, a cooking fire that's inside your kitchen. So since we're talking about cooking fires, kitchen fires, and grease fires, what do we do for a grease fire? Okay, let's talk about, first of all, what don't we do? Ma'am, go ahead. Go with your thought.
I was gonna say salt or something.
That's a good point. We'll talk about that in a minute.
You don't put water on.
Okay, so number one thing we do not do. What's your name? Lila. Just like Lila is saying, the number one thing that we do not do is we don't want to put water on it. Why is that? It spreads, yes. When we add water to a kitchen fire, a grease fire, it causes the fire to increase 1,700 times the size of the fire. So if you've seen the demonstrations that we have at our fire prevention open house where a person will pour water on it, the fire just goes out of control. So a fire in a kitchen that size would come over about halfway this room, possibly. It would burn all the tops of the blinds down. It would cause a huge fire. Just think of what would happen to you if you were there pouring the water on it. So, yeah, right. So that's why this is a good reminder. She's right. Who thinks of that? So never put water on it. But what do we do, though, for a kitchen? Cover. So we cover, we smother. And why is that so important to do? Why? Why does that work?
Takes the oxygen.
Exactly. All three of you said the right thing. So for fire to happen, fire needs three things. It needs heat, it needs a fuel source, and it needs oxygen or air. So then by us covering it or smothering it, we take away one of those chemical reactions that causes the fire to happen. We take away the oxygen so that it causes the fire to go out. And then when we say cover it, I'm going to get this pan again. This is a good demonstration because what we want to do, keep in mind, is that when we cover this, you can try to find the lid that goes to it, keep that nearby, and you can just slide it over like that, like that. Don't throw it. Slide it over like that, cover it. What happens if you don't have the lid, though? What can we use?
Put baking soda.
We'll talk about that in a second. That's a good point too, and because we have something that we want to share with you. If you don't have the lid though, what other cooking utensil can you use that would just cover almost any size pot that you can just slide it right on top of it?
You take a plate.
Could take a plate, yep. Or what about, who said it? A cookie sheet, exactly. So what you could do is use a cookie sheet and cover right there. In conjunction with that, we want to remind you to have something that will stop you from getting burned. And just like very similar to what the fire department used, we use protection. These oven mitts, they have one-sided protection. And keep in mind too, oven mitts are generally one-sided. It's a left hand or a right hand. If you're right-handed, make sure you have a right-handed oven mitt. Don't put it on your left hand because you may reach through and get burned as well. So that's something to keep in mind. So we want to emphasize that. The reason why we're talking about kitchen fires is because it's the third leading cause of all fires, kitchen fires are. And the other thing too, since we're on that subject of kitchen fires, we're going to segue to the next one, which deals with if our clothes catch on fire, we stop, drop, and roll. We're going to put these two together because when people wear clothes, and especially when they're cooking, sometimes we cook in the middle of the night. And what do some people cook in? A bathrobe. Yep, they do. And if you notice, those bathrobes, they have long flowing sleeves. What happens sometimes is that people, and all of us are the same, we're a slave to habits. Sometimes when we're cooking, we're all around, we're cooking right here, but we may reach over to adjust something, we may reach over, and that long sleeve does what? Catches fire. So we've had, in the fire service, we've had that happen to a gentleman. He reached over to put out a fire, or reached over while he was cooking. His long sleeve that was flowing caught fire, and it did not do well for him at all. He perished as a result of the burns and the inhalation from that. So what we're reminding individuals to do is that if you have to cook, what should you wear to cooking? Short sleeves, or tight-fitting sleeves, or sleeveless, or whatever you have to do. Just make sure that you're protected when that happens. Otherwise, it could happen. And the way, like we talked about, those materials.
We should have some rubber bands or something there that we could just.
Excellent point. Yeah, right.
Think about it.
And so that's why this program is so important. It helps us to remember those things. And we have so much that we have, like she's saying, that we think about. Sometimes just the reminders here and there help us to remember. And that's important because as we're talking about, one thing that we still have to know that if our clothes catch fire, even at our ages, we still have to stop, drop, and roll. Now I know, I tell you, the last thing I want to do is get down on the floor. I mean, it's like I'll find 16 different ways not to get on the floor, and it's probably an easy way to do it. But the reality though is that if we catch fire, that's still the best way. Now let's talk about it at our ages. Stop, drop, and roll. We know we can't get down as fast as young individuals do. One thing that we could do is if we're in the kitchen is we can lean up against the wall and slide down and get down to stop, drop, and roll. We can do that. And then once we get down, cover our face and roll. Focus on rolling on the side that the fire is happening on. It's still the best way to do it. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but that's one thing we want to make sure that you do.
All right, so we've talked about how important it is to exercise regularly. We've talked about slowing down and taking our time. And then we talked about how good vision, being able to see well, can help prevent falls. So we want to improve the lighting inside and outside of our homes. So we're going to talk a little bit more about home safety. The majority of falls actually happen either inside of our homes or right around where we live. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because that's where we typically spend most of our time, is at home. What do you think the most dangerous room of our home is for falls? The bathroom, right. The bathroom is particularly dangerous, right, because water and then hard surfaces of a tile floor or a bathtub can make things very, very slippery. So what we recommend, thankfully there are lots of things that we can do to our bathrooms to make them safer. So the first thing that we recommend is using these rubber-backed non-skid rugs near our sink and near our toilet. Near our tub and near our sink. So that can help soak up some of that extra water and prevent us from slipping on the floor when we're washing our hands or getting out of the shower or out of the tub. The important thing is, though, to make sure that they have this rubber backing, because rugs that don't have this can actually be very, very slippery. So see how that moves around a lot and could come out from underneath you? This rubber backing helps really secure it to the floor and prevents it from moving. The thing about these, though, has anybody noticed that over time or after you wash these a few times, the rubber backing can sometimes come off? So it's important to check them often just to make sure that the rubber backing is still intact. Also using these suction mats on the bottom of the tub or the bottom of your shower, or they even at a lot of hardware stores now, you can even buy strips that are non-skid that you can lay right down on the tub floor or the shower floor. So that will help provide traction and can help keep you safe while you're taking a shower.
Hardware store also.
I got this at the dollar store, actually. Yeah, a lot of things. A lot of this stuff really, I mean, doing home modifications can get expensive, but there's a lot of things that we can do to keep us safer that are very, very cost effective. So this I got from the dollar store. These rugs I actually got from the dollar store too. What about grab bars? Anybody have grab bars in their bathrooms? Okay, so having grab bars in the tub or near the toilet, that can help give us a little bit of added support. Grab bars are very, very good for safety in the bathroom because it does give us a little bit of extra support. We want to remember that things in our bathroom like a towel bar or the toilet paper holder, because sometimes people will use a toilet paper holder to sort of push themselves off the toilet. So those things aren't designed to support your weight if you should fall. So if you are having trouble getting in and out of the tub or on and off the toilet, it's important to have grab bars installed by a professional. So we want to make sure that they're at the right height and that they're properly anchored to the wall. Elevated toilets or adjustable toilet seats. Has anybody seen those? Yep, so those are great for people who maybe have a little bit of weakness in their legs. It helps get on and off the toilet a little bit easier. We have handheld shower heads now. So something that's detachable from the wall that allows you just to move your arm around instead of turning your whole body around in the shower when you're rinsing off and when you're showering. There's lots and lots of different kinds of shower chairs and transfer benches to help you get in and out of your tub and keep you safer while showering. So combining a shower chair with a handheld shower head, those are really good investments for fall prevention in the bathroom. This is pretty cool too. So think about how many things you do during the day that require balance. So getting dressed requires balance. Taking a shower requires balance. So these are some things that I borrowed from our occupational therapy department because these are just great tools to have in your house that can help keep you a lot safer too. So using one of these in the shower so you can get to your feet a lot easier instead of having to bend down and wash your feet.
The dollar store?
This, I have seen these at Meijer, and I've seen these around for pretty cheap. What about this? Anybody seen this before? Yeah. Okay, so this is great for reaching things that are a little bit up high, so you don't have to get on a step stool or for reaching things. Yep.
In your washer.
In your washer, yeah. Reach something that's. Yeah.
Like if there's one sock, I use those things.
Yep.
Otherwise,
so they sell these at medical supply stores, and there's actually lots of different ends that you can get for these. So some of them have magnets on them, some of them have grabbers, but really this could be a useful tool so that you can avoid having to bend down or to reach up high.
You can even get them at Home Depot.
Can you get them at Home Depot?
Yeah.
Oh.
In the South, when we were visiting down there, we went to the Home Depot and got one.
Cool. This is a long shoehorn, so you don't have to bend over to put your shoes on. So it's an easy way to slip your shoes on and off while you're standing up. I think a piece of candy to whoever can tell me what this is.
Put your socks
Put
on
your
with.
socks on.
Yeah, has everybody seen these? I wish I would have thought of this myself. So this is a real easy way to put your socks on. Yeah, so you put the sock over, and then you can just slip your sock right on, and it works a lot easier when you don't have your shoes on, but easy way to put. And so all of these things you can get at a medical supply store. So that was using non-slip mats. Somebody mentioned throw rugs. While we recommend having non-slip mats in your bathroom, throw rugs or scatter rugs can be big-time tripping hazards. So we recommend that you not have throw rugs throughout the rest of your home. But if you prefer to have them, you want to make sure they have that rubber backing. Now at a lot of hardware stores, you can buy those non-skid pads to put underneath the rug, so that sort of helps secure it a little bit more to the floor. But you really, if you do have them, you always want to make sure there's no turned up corners that you could trip on, or.
I have a lot of throw rugs, but they're not heavy, they're light.
Okay.
And if I don't pick up my feet, they come with me a little bit, and that's wonderful, so I know that I didn't do it right, and I just flip them over.
You can buy double-sided tape to put under there too, so that's another good way that you could
But
keep
I
it secure
do-
to the
yeah,
floor.
Not the heavy ones that that, God forbid, you can trip on.
Yeah.
They're just light, you could just, if I don't pick up my feet, it just goes like that, and
Right.
that's fine.
Well, we want to be really careful about uneven surfaces throughout our home. So throw rugs can do that if you have, like an elevation in between your bathroom and the other room. Sometimes there's a little lip or something that you have to step over. So, it goes back to just taking your time and kind of paying attention to what you're doing and where you're walking. Anybody, what's the strangest thing you've ever tripped over in your house? I hear shopping bags. Dog. You ever tripped over something and it was like, man, I should have picked that up right away?
My shoes.
Your shoes? Yep. Yep, so we want to make sure that we keep our stairs and our other walking areas clear. So something just as simple as, making sure that we put away books, making sure that we put away our shoes so that they're not left laying around in an area where we could trip over them. So really having sensible footwear can help to prevent many falls. And sometimes that might mean that we have to choose safety over fashion, right? Our shoes should have low heels in general, and they should have a non-skid rubber sole to provide good traction. We also want to make sure our shoes fit well. So we don't want to have a shoe that's flapping around on our foot. We want to make sure that it completely surrounds our feet. We want to try to avoid either flip-flop type shoes or these floppy backless slippers. So these are real easy to come out of and could cause a fall. So we want to try to avoid that. The best shoes are going to have either laces or Velcro straps to help keep the shoe secure to your foot. And living in Michigan, having a good pair of boots for the winter too, right? Because snow is on the way, I hear. So having a good pair of boots is also a good investment. Well, I'll just say one last thing about falls just to wrap this up, because I think that you're right. Like, we can do everything right.
We do it all the time, so why do we have to leave?
We can exercise, we can make our homes safer, we can slow down and take our time, and sometimes things still happen, right?
Right.
So this is another thing that we need to think about is if we do fall, do we have a plan for how we're going to get ourselves back up or how we're going to get help on the way? Because it is very unfortunate when somebody has to spend a night either on their bathroom floor or on the garage floor because they fell and they weren't able to get up and get to the phone. So just think about that one last piece is if you were to fall, do you have a medical alert bracelet, or do you carry a cell phone on you when you're walking around your home or when you're outside? These are just suggestions on how we can improve our safety. So we know our homes very well, we do, and right. So this program is just about giving some simple solutions. Right. So maybe some people know how to navigate their house in the dark, but it's safer to have a night light or, yeah. All right, well, I'll let you wrap it up.
Yeah, exactly. And we really appreciate the participation, particularly for our citizens here in Farmington Hills. We want you to know that you have a lot of services. Here at the Cossack Center, there's things happening all the time. And it allows us to do, just like she's saying, allows us to remember, it allows us to get active, and allows us to do things. This is another program. The next thing we'll talk about is smoke alarms. How often should you test smoke alarms? Once a month. We got it right here. Once a month. And keep in mind this too. So now she's right. Test once a month, unless manufacturer's statements are saying something different. But across the board, across the country, we test smoke alarms once a month. We change batteries when we change our clock. So that's when. How often?
Twice a year.
Yep, every 6 months, twice a year. And smoke alarms only last 10 years. They only last 10 years. Similar with carbon monoxide alarms or detectors, they only last 10 years. So if you have a smoke alarm and it's been longer than 10 years, it's got to be replaced. They only last 10 years. Other thing, there's 2 styles of smoke alarms out there. Actually, there's 3 or 4, but 2 styles that the majority of individuals use. You'll recognize the one that has a battery in it. So the one style is ones that come with a battery like this. Those batteries, as we said, every 6 months, change the batteries. When you change your time, those batteries have to be replaced every 6 months. But the smoke alarm only lasts 10 years. The other style, which is a newer style, is the 10-year lithium-ion battery smoke alarm. So this smoke alarm actually lasts for 10 years. You don't replace a battery ever. You put it up, you mark the date on it, 10 years later you replace the entire thing. So it still has to be tested once a month, but the actual battery in here doesn't have to be replaced. This is a 10-year lithium-ion battery. So you install it, and don't worry about replacing the battery, just test it once a month. These are the new ones that are out there. Also keep in mind, for those who are hearing impaired, there are smoke alarms for hearing impaired. There are smoke alarms for people who are deaf. The deaf smoke alarms, they actually shake the bed a little bit. And so some of those smoke alarms, there's technology always being made for individuals who have special needs. So keep that in mind. The next thing that we're talking about, and also on smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors, we want you to remember, carbon monoxide is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. There's no way to detect it unless you have a detector. So if you have furnaces, if you have stoves, if you have cars in a garage, all of those generate carbon monoxide. We have to have a detector for those in order to detect them. Yes, we've had incidents that involved individuals being overcome with carbon monoxide. It happens every year. You hear about it. So the best way to protect ourselves is by having those alarms, carbon monoxide alarms. Now, real quick, what's our emergency number? 911. Let me ask you this. Is it okay to call 911 if you need help out of bed?
No.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, and I'm going to tell you why. And typically, the answer used to be no. In a lot of cities, because 911, you call the police. But now in our city, we have a 911 non-emergency number. So when you call 911, you'll get, sometimes they'll ask you, our dispatch, they'll ask you the question. They'll say, is this an emergency? And then you can say, no, I just need help out of bed. They say, okay, then they handle things differently. What if you need help getting out of a car to get into your house? Can you call 911? No. Yes. What if you've fallen in the middle of the night and you didn't hurt yourself? You just need help up. Can you call 911? Yes. In our city, Farmington Hills, we want you to call for any emergency or non-emergency that could lead itself to. Well, it's really, in Farmington Hills. I'm going to speak freely for Farmington Hills since I work there. But it goes across the board, usually. Yes. Other cities too. Southfield, Livonia. Yes, ma'am.
Years ago, when my dad was in assisted living, and the people there wouldn't help him up, and they would call.
Yep.
And the firemen would come, but they called it Citizens Assist.
Exactly.
They charged for that service? Is
Well,
there a charge?
no. There's no charge for that. So in your city, your taxes take care of that. The fire department, we don't charge for that. We don't charge for that. So keep that in mind. The reason being is because just like Sarah was talking about fall prevention, a lot of times individuals think that I fell, oh, I'm not hurt. I think I'll just get up. That happened to my mom. She fell, she thought she wasn't hurt. She actually broke her hip. And so that's why we want you to call. We don't mind calling. We'd rather come out there and just help you up and do a real quick, check over that's non-medical just to make sure everything's okay, than for you to fall and actually hurt yourself. So for things that we've gotten 911 calls for a lot of different things. So please believe me that we want to help. That's what we're doing in the fire service. In your city here, they're passionate about helping the older citizens in the city. And you guys have paid your dues. You paid your dues. You deserve that. You deserve our help. Okay, the next point that we're talking about, planning your escape from fire and smoke around, and we're going to tie the two together, plan your escape from fire and smoke, so actually having a plan and then planning around your abilities. Let's talk about our abilities. Now, how many of you remember back to your 30s and 40s when you were 30 and 40 years old? Yeah, well, exactly. We all do. I remember back to my 30s and 40s. I'm no longer there. That's gone. But do you remember how fast, if something happened, you could just get up and go do whatever you wanted to? If somebody said, hey, come over here, I can just go do that. If you had to get out of this room, we'd get out of that room fast. Now, that's not the case. So when we talk about escaping from fire, there's two things that we want to talk about. I want to say that this is probably the most important thing that I'm going to say today, and it's about escaping from fire. The most important thing that I'm going to say is that fire goes so fast now compared to where it used to be. It used to be when there was a fire, you had 7-10 minutes to make it out because what we had burning was just regular wood and products like that. Now because of the plastics, the urethanes, the oils, the toxic chemicals that are made in, you don't have that time. Fire, a house will go fully involved in as little as 3 to 4 minutes. So you only have sometimes 2 or 3 minutes at the most to get out of a house fire. So the most important thing that we're talking about, the National Fire Protection Association is pushing, and we're talking about here in Farmington Hills, is closing the door. The way it works is that these doors here in this building, this is, of course, these are fire-rated doors. They keep fire. But our own house doors, the doors that only have a 30-minute or an hour rating, those too are fire-rated. So we've done demonstrations here in Farmington Hills. Other fire departments have done it too, where if there's a fire out there in a hallway, first of all, let's say, for example, we all encourage everyone to sleep in your bedroom, have a smoke alarm on every level, have one in every bedroom. That's what we're encouraging. Have carbon monoxide alarms there too, not as many. Smoke alarms should be on every level in every bedroom. And we're encouraging everyone to sleep with their bedroom door closed, because if your smoke alarm outside activates and your one inside activates, it's because there's probably a problem. So the first thing we want you to do is feel that door with the back of your hand. Why do we say the back of our hands? It's more sensitive, number one. So we start low, and then if we get up and if the door is hot, do we want to open that door? Right, exactly, because if that doorknob is hot and that door is hot, what do we know is on the other side? Fire, exactly. So we use the back of our hands because it's more sensitive. And the other reason we use the back of our hands is because our first way out is the door. What's our second way out? The window. So if we have to use our hands to open that window, we still have the front of our fingers that we can unlock the door with, even though we may have gotten burned on the back of our hand. So that's why. So we fill the door with the back of our hands. And if that door is hot, we have to have our second way out. But closing the door is important. Let's say, for example, if the door wasn't hot and you went out there and you saw a little smoke and you thought that I can get out there, I know I can make it out that front door. Let me tell you, we had a young man, and I say young because he was in his 20s, talking to a dispatch center who got the call, who said, my house is on fire. Dispatch was trying to coax him to go out his second way. He thought because he was young that he could make it out of that front door. His body was found 6 feet away from the front door. He didn't make it because of the toxic fumes. All it takes is 2 or 3 breaths of that stuff, and it's over with. The carbon monoxide displaces oxygen. We lose our ability to reason, and then our bodies shut down fast with the chemicals that are toxic. So if you do go outside and you think you can make it, you find that there's smoke, come back in. The best thing that you can do at that point is close that door. That door will keep this room protected while fire sometimes is burning right outside the door. That'll give you time to go to your second way out, which is the window, and decide what you're gonna do. Now, hopefully you sleep on the main floor. If you sleep upstairs, then you have to talk about escape ladders and things like that. I'm gonna tell you, we had a class yesterday where our state fire marshal, Kevin Selmeyer, was talking, and he was talking about how individuals at older ages, how they perish sometimes. There was a guest speaker there that said, individuals at our ages, after you get 50 and over, they don't want to climb out a window. They're like, I gotta be on fire before I'm going out that window. And that happened to one lady. She could have gotten out. There was 2 people in the house. The first person broke the window and climbed out. Second person was afraid to climb out that window. She ended up being badly burned. She eventually got out, but she ended up being badly burned, whereas the first person who jumped out the window was trying, come on, look, come on, you can't stay up there. That first person got out, minor injuries. Second person, because of the fear. In the fire service, we have what's called, and you've heard of it, life over what? Life over limb, yes. Which means that we would rather you take a 4-foot fall, and hopefully you don't. We're going to be there with ladders. That just lets you know when we tell you to close the door, we're boosting up our service. We got our response time is less than 4 minutes generally here in the city. We have 5 fire stations. We have hundreds of firefighters. So we have enough firefighters there to get there. So we're asking you to close that door, get to your window, and if you don't open your window, see, when that door is closed, oxygen can't follow you. That's what happens. Same scenario, person goes out, this happened in a nearby city, grandmother with 3 children, knew to use their escape plan. The only thing they forgot to do was to close the door. And that grandmother and 3 children were found 3 feet away from the window. It's so sad when it can be prevented. So what we're saying, close the door. Go in and close the door. When you close the door, it protects this room. It protects you from the fire that's burning out there. That's the biggest important thing. Close the door, go over to the window, remove the blinds, find out how to unlock the window, and just wait. You don't have to open the window yet. If it gets to the point where that fire starts to come in, then now you open that window and you do whatever you have to do. We say and do that because we know that in our city, just like you saw in a nearby suburb where our department went and helped rescue all those senior citizens from the building. We did that. They were carrying older men and older women down ladders. We do that all the time. So we don't mind doing that. We train for that. That's the scenario that we train for. So when you close your door and you're using your window as your secondary escape, know that we will be there. We're going to try to coast you down. So then, that's the best thing to do. So if you don't remember anything, if you have a fire, make sure you close the door. It'll stop the oxygen. It'll shut off the supply that allows that fire to follow you into the room. It will do that for you. And that's what we want to do. So in conjunction with that is planning your escape around your abilities. One thing we talked about is the difference when we were younger. As we get older, our bodies break down. As men, we can't do what we used to do. And as women, you can't do what you used to do years ago too. Our bodies break down. Now we have canes, we have walkers, we have wheelchairs, we have whatever we have. So when it comes to escaping, know that it's going to take more time. It's going to take more time. And as Sarah was talking about, and as she said earlier about having no clutter in your way. Know that if my wheelchair is 3 feet wide, I can't have a 2 foot wide of clutter. I can't have only a 2 foot wide pathway. I got to have a clear way to my exit and a clear way to my secondary exit. So knowing that I'm going to plan my escape around my abilities. I'm going to make sure when I go to bed at night that I have my walker nearby. I'm going to make sure that I have my canes nearby. I'm going to make sure that I have my wheelchair so I can get in and out of it, and I know which way I'm going to go. And also, I'm going to make sure that I know that based on my limitations, if I go and fill that door and I take a look out, I am not going out there because I know I'm not going to have time to make it to that front door. I'm going to close that door, and my first way out now is going to be that second way. Because I'm going to say this. The only way that we can fight fire from the inside is we bring our own air in. We have our mask in. That's the way we do. So the chemicals that burn, all it takes is 1 or 2 breaths of those chemicals. And because of the chemicals that they will incapacitate you immediately. Immediately. and you'll pass out, and then your body will succumb to the injuries from the fire after you succumb to smoke inhalation. That's what we hear it all the time, they died from smoke inhalation. We hear that all the time because autopsy reveals that the individual, no, they didn't die from getting burnt up. They died because they were trying to escape using the wrong path, and they overcome by smoke inhalation. So that's one thing that we want to keep in mind. So I don't want to end on a bad note. So on a good note, just know that the Remember When program is all about reminders. Know that just like my partner Sarah said, and my partner who isn't here, Teresa, if she was here, she would say that if you need anything, that's what we're here for. Part of this program too is a home visit. So we have a sign-up sheet too. If you need, please believe me, when we come to visit the homes, we're there just to do whatever you want us to do. It's non-judgmental, and we're not trying to say, hey, let us go in there to inspect. We only do what you want us to do. We're just there to make sure, just like she talked about, that there's no trip hazards. Okay, but if you need help at your home, give us a call. We appreciate you guys so much.
All right, well, thank you guys for coming today.